can't imagine what the founder members thought when they started the Quilters Guild in the early days. I have no idea what they would expect of their humble beginnings, but I do so hope that they're proud of what they've done, because as a member rather than as president of the guild, I'm just so pleased that they did it. I love my membership of the guild, and I know I share that with many other members. They have achieved so much over the years. We have a stable membership of over some 7,000 members. We have an accredited museum collection of British quilts, which we believe is second to none. Meeting here in St Anthony's, which housed our museum, has evoked lots of feelings of nostalgia. I've seen people this afternoon walk into the room and go, the museum was very dear to us, and closing it was never an easy decision. But it was because of the museum that we moved to York, and York has given us such a wonderful home. The community have supported us. We now find ourselves working with the community. And if you attended Festival of Quilts and looked at the museum gallery there, you will have seen an example of that cooperative working, because we had work from students of York St John University, and that work continues, as does other work. There's a quilt on the wall that was displayed as part of an exhibition within York, and it's just been a wonderful home for us. But what are the next 40 years? You can work hard and do so much, but life does not stop. The Guild does not stop. But the Guild's in good heart. Our regional activities, of which are over 250 events last year, all organised by volunteers, go from strength to strength. And although we no longer have a physical museum, pieces from our collection, which continues to grow, are seen by more visitors than ever before. Our current focus on developing an educational programme and building relationships beyond the Guild continues and will keep us busy for some years to come. The main thing is that we are here for quilters and would-be quilters of any sort and welcome them all. But I'd like to finish by thanking our founder members for putting the stepping stones in place. They were tentative first steps, and I've no idea whether they realised what they were doing. But I'd also like to thank the many, many volunteers who have continued that work. Without those volunteers, and I can wave at you all in the room, I think, the Guild wouldn't be what it is today. So, here's to the next 40 years.
We are very proud of our international significant dedicated quilt collection. Much care has been taken over the decades to form a wide-ranging representation of our patchwork and quilting heritage. It's a privilege to look after, and we are very fortunate to keep on expanding it as well with new acquisitions all of the time. As you know, we have recently written a special anniversary publication charting the evolution of the collection since the Guild's formation in 1979. As the book details the development of the collection over the last 40 years, with far more images and information than I can impart to you today, I thought I would take a little bit of a different approach into the collections talk today. Instead, I intend to look at the values and the mission of the Quilters Guild and pull out some of the items in the collection that embody some of those values and that define us as an organisation. So the Quilters Guild is an educational charity, and it's open to everybody, bringing quilters together in a community. The collection preserves the heritage of patchwork and quilting, but is and always has been a key part of providing a vibrant future for the craft as a source of learning and also inspiration for future and current generations of practitioners. The encouragement and promotion of all styles and types of patchwork and quilting are important to us, including the supporting of quilting as a valid artistic medium. The Guild is also a place of great friendship, and a good deal of those have been forged over the last 40 years, since that first inaugural meeting in 1979. So it's these values of community, education, passing on skills, providing inspiration, recognising quilting as art, and also, lastly, friendship, that we're going to explore through a few examples from our wonderful collection. So quilting is a great communal activity, something that members of the Quilters Guild already know, uniting people together and sometimes done to raise money for local causes which are important to them. Historically, signature quilts, which were communally produced pieces, raised funds by participants paying to have their name embroidered on a square. In some cases they wrote their names, in other cases others would write it for them in a slightly neater hand. But the finished quilt would also often be raffled, therefore raising more money for their chosen cause. Signature quilts are a valuable snapshot of a community, at a specified time and place doing a specific activity. Their fundraising nature also often meant their activity was further recorded in local newspapers or in church records. This red and white coverlet from the bazaar at the Sheriff Hutton Wesleyan School in 1898 was discovered in an attic of a local Methodist church member in 1981. With 100 squares, each with an average of 5 names, this quilt is a wonderful record of the residents of Sheriff Hutton near York at the turn of the century. From John Coates in the centre, who owned a grand 39-roomed house and estate of Sheriff Hutton Park, to William Harrison, a simple farmer, there are signatures showing people from all different levels of society. Some of the signatures on the quilt show names of children too young to sign their own name. Ernest William Cordukes, whose name can be seen at the centre of this family square on the top right-hand side of the piece, was baptised only 11 days before the bazaar. No doubt his family, whose names surround them on the square, enjoyed showing him off to their friends and family at the fete. Perhaps his aunt, Emily Gilbertson, and her children, whose square lies next to the Cordukes, came from their neighbouring town of High Catton to see the latest newborn in the family. Also in attendance were Ernest's other aunt and uncle, Charlotte and William Adenell, and their daughter Mary, whose names can be found in the middle left-hand side of the piece. We know that Charlotte Adenell emigrated to New Zealand shortly after the bazaar, following her husband's death in 1902. Education is also a key function of the Guild, and the encouragement given by members and teachers to those just starting on their quilting journey, whatever their age might be, is something that makes us very special. Passing on traditional skills has been a key method of survival of crafts throughout the centuries, but in the 20th century there have been several occasions when traditional crafts look as though they were dying out. The interwar years were particularly difficult times, and quilting, especially in the whole cloth style, lost popularity and skillful practitioners and faced competition from commercial alternatives that were more fashionable, cheaper and more easily available. Younger generations had a very different lifestyle and weren't necessarily taught the same traditional skills as their mothers and grandmothers. In an attempt to prevent these crafts from dying out altogether, the Royal Industries Bureau was established in the late 1920s, and workshops and classes were set up in the North Country and in Wales, which concentrated on using current quilters to teach skills to younger generations, whilst also fulfilling orders for quilted products for high-class clients. This created work of the highest quality, and items were sold through fashionable London outlets, such as Muriel Rose's Little Gallery. The benefit of this also extended to the quilters themselves, providing an income to quilters and their families in the poorest of areas. Irene Morgan was one of those quilters educated under the Royal Industries Bureau scheme, and Claire Claridge's research into the Aberdare group notes that she was one of these new generation of quilters that the scheme sought to train. She joined the newly formed class in Aberdare in 1929, which was taught by Amy Thomas, a long-standing quilter who produced work of the highest quality. She was praised by Mavis Fitz-Randolph for her innovative use of traditional Welsh designs, and she continued to make bed quilts, cot quilts, bed jackets and dressing gowns for private customers long after the Rural Industries scheme was finished. Her quilted items were award-winning, and she won first prize at the Festival of Britain National Exhibition in 1951 for her wine-coloured velvet dressing gown. This gold satin dressing gown, just here, was made also in the early 1950s and is beautifully quilted and constructed with piped edges along the sleeves and the collar. One of the main comments you often hear when attending quilt exhibitions is that visitors find exhibitions inspiring. Seeing the creative work of others, either contemporary work or pieces from the past, can trigger our own creative thoughts and spark ideas of how to replicate or adapt what we see to inform our own creative output. Some people like to recreate historic pieces as closely as possible, and certainly the fashion and availability of reproduction printed cottons have helped people to achieve very realistic looking reproduction items. But others like to take individual elements, techniques and ideas and put in their own twist, taking inspiration from an original piece but adapting it to make their own. With so many amazing items in our collection and the numbers growing all the time, it certainly is a huge source of inspiration for quilters. Our latest inspirational piece is the Red Manor House coverlet, a beautiful applique piece dating from the mid-Victorian period. The charming central Red Manor House and the vast array of flower and animal motifs caught the imaginations and hearts of Quilters Guild members when this large applique coverlet came up for auction in 2013. Applique is often a lot rarer than patchwork and quilting, and this is certainly an extensive example, showcasing each motif in its own square block, which is then surrounded by colourful printed cotton sashing. The subjects of each block are distinctly ordinary in nature, and the rural animals and the potted plants are probably a reflection of what the maker saw around her. Sadly, we know very little about the maker of the coverlet, and we only know part of its life and travels after it was made. We know that from the auction information that it was purchased in 1971 for £28. When the coverlet was documented in the British Quilt Heritage Project Documentation Day in 1993, it was recorded that the family travelled from Gloucestershire to South Africa, taking the coverlet with them, but later returned to live in Princess Risborough in Buckinghamshire. As the coverlet was already made at the time of the family's travels, we know the design must have been inspired by their previous home rather than when they were abroad. Whilst we don't have any specific family information, we can assume the maker was middle class and had access to fabrics, time and sewing skills. While some of the designs are more naive than others, they are carefully thought out and each piece has herringbone stitch around every single edge, which is incredibly time-consuming. The large size of the piece could also indicate a reasonably sized bed and therefore quite a comfortable household. The coverlet is the inspiration for the Block of the Month project, which was launched by the Quilters Guild at the Festival of Quilts this year, to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Guild. The red house at the centre of the piece is perfectly placed to celebrate a ruby anniversary. And Jenny Smith Studios have done an amazing job in their inspired by version of the coverlet, which takes elements of the original to create a new piece that allows you to use a great variety of different techniques. We're excited to see what people make and also encourage people to personalise their creations, making it truly unique to themselves. Patchwork and quilting are both inherently artistic practices and show the creative flair of their makers by the infinite variety of pieces that have been made in the past. Yet as a domestic object within the realm of social history, they often resigned a low position in the pecking order of museum collections, which has previously valued high art and scientific collections above those ordinary everyday objects which have been made by ordinary people. Within the realm of art, textiles have similarly struggled to be viewed with equal merit, even though many contemporary pieces are just another variation of the traditional artist's canvas. Quilting as art, as a non-functional object to be viewed in a gallery context, is something that's emerged over the last 50 years and is increasingly being given much better recognition. We are very fortunate to have a good representation of contemporary quilts in the collection, and are very thrilled to have been donated a large Pauline Burbage piece entitled Fish Out of Water, made in 1991, donated by the artist herself. As you may be aware, Pauline's career as a quilter has also spanned the last 4 decades. And as an artist making a living from her work, it's important that her pieces are purchased by museums, galleries and private collections to support this. However, in our very special 40th anniversary year, Pauline has chosen to make one very special exception and has donated this piece to us to celebrate our 40th anniversary. This piece... This piece joins another one of her works, Honesty Skyline, which was made in 2015 and provides to our collection another large piece of work representing her style and practice in the 1990s. As a founder member of the Quilters Guild, she's been with us from the start, and we are so thrilled to have this piece and hugely appreciate the significance of her donation. Fish Out of Water was made in 1991 when the artist, Pauline, was working on freeform shapes in contrast to hard-edged geometric forms. Inspired by the boldness of Matisse paper cuts, the artist made paper collages and then translated into fabric collages using fabric glue to paste down the shapes before stitching. The work was quilted on an industrial machine owned by Nottingham company Harvey's, which was hired in the quiet period of their production. Several quilt tops were prepared and stitched together in one length and then fed into the quilting machine to treat them as one piece of cloth. This is the first opportunity we've had to display the piece, which is just to the left, and I think you'll all agree that it looks absolutely stunning on the walls. Friendship is a wonderful benefit of being a guild member. Through attending events, shows, groups, or volunteering together, friendships are forged with others through shared experience and the love of the crafts. We also make quilts and coverlets for our non-quilty friends too, as personal gifts to celebrate events, birthdays, anniversaries, or simply just to celebrate our friendships. This colourful double-sided coverlet is made from square patches placed on point, and the front features a centre embroidered with a commemoration to celebrate the Silver Jubilee of George V and Queen Mary, with an appliqued cigarette silk printed with the British Empire Royal Standard flag. The patches are a mixture of plain and printed dress cotton, silk and rayon fabrics. The maker recorded that it took a year to make by hand, using a total of 12,264 patches, taking 1,825 hours. It was made by James Burt, who made it for his friend Wilfred McSloy, when they were both being treated for tuberculosis in Woolley Sanatorium in Northumberland in the late 1930s. Tuberculosis was a major public health issue in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and sanatoria were created to provide both dedicated healthcare and a form of quarantine for TB sufferers. Recovery was a long process, but sanatoria, like Woolley, often organised activities to occupy patients and speed up their recovery, including drawing, cabinet making, and sewing. No doubt making this coverlet would have been an important part of James' convalescence. Certainly, we will all be able to be familiar with the therapeutic effects of our crafts as one of the main reasons why we practice them. They can ground us, they can calm us when we're troubled, they can also give us time to space and think, and provide us with some focus or distraction, depending on your situation. And even in the hectic and very instant world of the 21st century, there are endless benefits to our crafts that make them just as relevant today as they have been in the past. And so it is important that as a craft and as a guild, we continue to provide the key values we've explored and also maintain our relevance to current society. Congratulations to you all on the last 40 years, and here's to the next 40 and the future of the Quilters Guild.